The most striking truth about emotional bait questions is that the person asking them isn't looking for an answer. They are looking for a reaction. We generally assume that a question is a tool for information, but in high-pressure dynamics, it's often a precision-engineered weapon designed to bypass your logic and strike your nervous system. You know that feeling, right? When a calm question from a certain person makes you want to scream or cry in a way that feels totally out of character? Well, that's the core paradox of baiting. It's that exact moment your own natural response to a hidden insult is turned into the evidence used to prove you're the one who's unstable. Just let that sink in for a second. A question not as an inquiry, but as a provocation. This is the central idea we're going to unpack today. In certain dynamics, whether it's a hostile workplace, a messy legal battle, or a really difficult relationship, questions can be weaponized. They're calibrated to trigger an emotional response, pretty much short-circuiting a rational brain. The goal isn't to understand you, it's to manage you. And this is where it gets so confusing and honestly pretty painful. Have you ever been there? Someone asks a seemingly innocent, calmly delivered question, and your entire body just floods with this overwhelming urge to react emotionally. That is the baiting paradox in action. It's that moment when your own natural biological response to a hidden insult gets captured, and then it's turned against you. It's used as the proof that you're the one who's being irrational. Okay, so let's really dive into what's happening here. What we're witnessing is a complete shift in the purpose of communication. A healthy conversation, that's a dialogue, right? We're trying to find some common ground. But emotional baiting turns it into something else entirely, a capture. It's basically a performance designed to get footage of your reaction. So in this explainer, we're going to deconstruct that exact pattern. The idea is to move you from feeling that reactive shame over your own emotions to a place of clear analytical understanding of the mechanics at play. So here's our roadmap. First, we're going to look at the invisible architecture of this whole dynamic. Then, we'll break down the specific hijack and capture mechanism, step by step. After that, we'll get into the real goal behind this behavior, which is character disqualification. Then, we'll shift to the practical tools for moving from just reacting to actually recognizing what's happening. And finally, we'll land on the incredible power of just not answering. All right, let's get into our first section, the invisible architecture. To really get a handle on this, we first have to define the key concepts, the unseen forces that are the foundation of this entire dynamic. Okay, so the clinical term for this pattern is reactive induction. And this isn't just some made-up phrase. It's a documented cognitive shift that's been observed in behavioral science. It's basically a process where one person strategically manages another by maneuvering them into the role of the aggressor. So the controller stays calm, rational, and just keeps asking questions, while you, the target, are induced into this state of emotional reactivity, which makes you look unstable to anyone watching. And you know why this is so effective? It's because it plays on our own sense of decency. It's called the response trap. It's this belief we all have that keeps us hooked in the first place. We're taught that to be a fair, honest, reasonable person, you have to answer questions directly. This becomes a huge vulnerability because it forces us to play the game even when we know the question is hostile or designed to trap us. Now, this creates this incredibly isolating experience called biological mismatch. Your body's threat detection system starts blaring. You get a surge of adrenaline, your heart starts pounding, your nervous system is basically screaming that there's a threat in the room. But because the threat is delivered in this calm tone, or it's wrapped in plausible deniability, it's invisible to everyone else. And that creates this awful internal conflict where your body's reality doesn't match the social reality, and it just makes you feel like you're going crazy. So this is the really crucial point. We walk into a conversation expecting an active dialogue, where the goal is to find common ground. But without realizing it, we get cast in this role of passive victimization. And in that role, our only purpose is to provide the footage, the emotional outburst, the tears, the raised voice, that the other person needs to prove just how difficult we are. The conversation was never about connecting. It was about collecting data. And this leads us to the long-term danger of this whole pattern. When this dynamic goes on, it can lead to something called identity erosion. What happens is, people may start to internalize the story being told about them. After being baited into enough outbursts, they stop seeing themselves as a calm person reacting to provocation. Instead, they start to believe they really are the angry, irrational person they're told they are. It's like their own nervous system, their own survival instincts become a witness against their own character. So now that we understand the forces at play, let's look at exactly how this trap gets sprung, because this whole process follows a very predictable, almost mechanical three-step pattern. The sequence is just ruthlessly efficient. It all starts with a loaded premise, which is a question that has a hidden accusation baked right into it. This is specifically designed to trigger what's called the amygdala hijack, bypassing your rational brain and just igniting your fight or flight response. And once that happens, the final step is reaction capture, where your emotional response is immediately framed as the problem itself. Let's break each of those down.
Here it is, a classic example of a loaded premise. A question like, "Why do you hate me so much?" I mean, it's a masterclass in this technique. It's not a real question. To even start to answer it, you have to accept the false premise that you do hate them. If you say, "I don't hate you," you just sound defensive. If you try to explain why you're upset, you're already playing their game. People report feeling totally suffocated by these questions because there's just no way to answer honestly without validating the lie at its core.
And the outcome of this repeated cycle is a phenomenon called reactive abuse. This is a really disorienting state where your brain actually gets conditioned to misinterpret its own survival instincts. So your acts of self-defense, raising your voice to be heard, crying out of sheer frustration, setting a firm boundary, get reframed and perceived, both by the controller and sometimes by yourself, as unprovoked aggression. Your reaction becomes the whole story, and what started it all just gets completely erased.
So this brings us to the really big question, why? Why does this happen? The answer is almost never about the thing you're actually talking about. As we're about to see, the true motive is way more strategic.
This right here, this is the whole game. It's a fundamental mismatch in what each person wants. The target's vulnerability is often their deep need for justice. You feel this powerful urge to correct the lie, to defend your integrity, to set the record straight. But the controller, they have a completely different goal: character disqualification. They aren't trying to win the argument. They are trying to make you look unstable. Because if they can successfully paint you as crazy, they get total control of the narrative. And let's be honest, no one listens to the story of someone who's been labeled emotionally unreliable.
And this strategy is so effective because it exploits a natural human bias called biological projection. As observers, our brains are wired to take shortcuts. We tend to pin the source of a problem, the wrongness in a situation, on the person who is showing the most emotion or making the most noise. The calm person looks like the reasonable one, and the emotional person looks like the problem, no matter who actually started it. And the controller knows this and uses it as leverage.
Okay, so we have really dissected the problem. Now let's get to the most important part, the solution. We're going to talk about how to shift from being a participant in this drama to being an observer of it. This is where we build our defense.
The very first tool for self-defense is purely analytical. It's called the Premise Audit. This is something you do internally, a moment you take for yourself before you even think about responding. The goal is simple. You consciously analyze the question being asked and figure out what it's really about. Are you being invited into a real conversation, or are you being led into a trap? The point isn't to confront them, but just to recognize it for yourself.
So how do you actually do a premise audit? You just ask yourself this one simple, powerful question in the moment. Is this question open or is it locked? An open question is all about curiosity. How are you feeling about this? That's open. A locked question, like, why do you hate me so much, demands that you accept a false premise just to engage with it. Simply recognizing that distinction is the first step to taking your power back.
Now, once you've identified a locked question, you can use a technique known as gray rock awareness. The idea is to become as uninteresting and boring as a gray rock. You respond with the most bland, neutral, emotionally flat answer you can think of. I see. Okay, that's one perspective. The whole goal here is to refuse to give them the emotional fuel they're fishing for. Without your reaction, the entire mechanism just grinds to a halt. You're not giving them the data they want.
And this awareness, these techniques, they all build toward a final, really crucial realization about power. And that brings us to our final section, the power of not answering. We have been conditioned to believe that if you're silent when you're accused of something, it's an admission of guilt. But in the context of emotional baiting, that cannot be further from the truth. Disengaging isn't weakness. Refusing to answer a loaded question isn't giving in. In these dynamics, silence is a profound act of power. It's a declaration that you will not participate in a game that's rigged for you to lose. It's pure strategic self-preservation. And this is the thought I really want to leave you with. Emotional baiting is an invitation.
It's an invitation to an argument that you are not obligated to attend. Your mind, your energy, and your emotional state, that's your own sovereign territory. And maybe the most empowering realization of all is that you can simply decline the invitation. Awareness is the key that makes sure no one else's bait becomes a cage for you. Don't bite.